Welcome everybody to this presentation. My name is Menno Hoekstra. I'm a product manager at GlobalCollect, responsible for all the reporting. And I'm here together with Jorge Villacampa, who is a data analyst at GlobalCollect. Tableau asked us to give a presentation of how we use their software, since we use it a bit differently than normal. In this presentation, Jorge and myself will tell you about our journey to create Elevate, which is a business intelligence tool that we provide to our clients. And we're going to tell it from the ID all the way to the finished product that we currently have and all these struggles and challenges that we had to face. The presentation will be divided into three parts. First off, I will tell a bit about, what is Elevate and why did we create it? More from a product management perspective. Then Jorge will tell a bit about how we designed the dashboards and our philosophy around it. And normally the next part is done by another colleague for the Tableau conference. But in today's session, the next part will also be done by Jorge Villacampa, and he will tell you a bit, how does it work from a technical perspective? So how does Elevate work combined with Tableau? And again, as well there, the challenges that we had to face. So first off, how did we create Elevate and why? To start, I'd like to give first a bit of background information of what does GlobalCollect do, assuming you have never heard of GlobalCollect in this case. So GlobalCollect is a payment service provider. And in short, that means that we make sure that when a consumer on your website does a payment, he or she can pay via the payment product that they prefer. And then also we handle the flow and connections with the banks. So, for instance, if a consumer wants to pay via Ideal, we make sure that he can pay via Ideal, which is a local payment product in the Netherlands. If he's coming from Brazil, he can pay via Boletos Bancário, for instance, which is a payment product popular payment product in Brazil. We do this for over almost 80 or so payment products, really ranging from credit cards to e-wallets to even the old-fashioned check payments. This is the fancy slide. Mainly we do this for the bigger merchants or bigger clients, so big international clients, mainly listed companies, typically that have a flow of over 100 million on a year, doing hundreds of millions of transactions, and really have consumers that come from across the world, so they have consumers in almost any country. With these merchants comes a lot of questions. Questions like, what is my conversion rate? And then what is my conversion rate, for instance, for a specific payment product or in a specific country? How do my consumers prefer to pay? Are there any differences in average transaction value? Where are fraud attacks occurring and where are they coming from? These business questions are all centered around, how can I improve my business? And we call them business questions. Normally, we provide answers to this with reporting. We have a set of custom reports and a set of standardized reports and of course custom reports if they want. And what we do is we send these reports in Excel or CSV or XML, PDF, even some ASCII formats, which is a fixed length format. And these hold then all the transactions of a particular payment product or a particular country. So, for example, if a merchant or a client wants to know their conversion rate for PayPal in Great Britain, for instance, we send them a long Excel file if it's a custom query, which hold all the transactions coming from that particular range. And this usually has three outcomes. First off, it could take them a lot of work. You have this long file with over 50,000 or so transactions, and then you need to work with that, make your formula, sometimes even some cross steps formulas, etc., which is really a lot of work. In my case, it often ends up like this, when I start working with the file and then I get so frustrated that I can't, I make mistakes and I can't get the right answer in it. So I just get so frustrated and I say, okay, you know what, never mind, I'm not going to do this anymore. Or the third possible outcome, I see the file, I look at the records and I think, you know what, never mind, I'm just going to do it later, which in most cases is never, and work on something else and forget the business questions that I had. So we at GlobalCollect wanted to tackle this. We saw that there was a need, and to start off we created a vision. And that vision is really to create answers to business questions and present this in an easy and understandable way. So how did we approach this vision, where we saw the clear need? First off, we started small. At GlobalCollect, we have what we call the GCAP, which is the GlobalCollect Advisory Board, which consists of around 10 bigger clients of ours. And we all put them in one room and ask, okay, what is it that you need in terms of reporting? What is it that you'd like to know about your business or anything about your data? And off of that, we received some business questions, so we started working with that. We created a small product which consists of 6 dashboards, all made in Tableau, and created a pilot. And in this pilot, we gave exclusive access to around 25 or so merchants for a limited period. And during that pilot, we asked them, okay, which dashboard did you find most interesting? What are you missing from these dashboards? Which dashboards did you find least interesting? What would you suggest how we could improve, etc. All questions on what are they missing and how can we improve the product even further. So with that product, we created, as it current state holds 24 dashboards, and we recently launched this. So now, what is Elevate in basis? Well, Elevate is a tool that takes all the reporting that we have, so all the data from our merchants or clients, and transforms this into a dashboard. And of course, with Tableau, a dashboard is not just a single overview of some graphs and figures. No, it's really interactive to use. So it holds. You can make comparison. You can make look at different dimensions, etc. So you can really go into detail, but you can also have a high-level view. Currently, Elevate, as mentioned, holds 24 of these dashboards, and they answer around 30 or even more business questions. And it is updated on a daily basis for around 500 of our merchants. A merchant, again, being a client. Let's just have a look at what Elevate is and how it looks like. I'll now open up Elevate, which is a web-based tool. Here you have the begin page of Elevate, and as you see, it is divided in 6 main topics, and behind those topics are the dashboard. So I'm just going to point out some of the dashboards that we created using Tableau and how our merchants are using it. So, for instance, one of the business questions that we received was, well, I'd just like to have an overview of my complete business in one glance. So in one glance, I want to see how am I performing. So based on 6 KPIs, we looked at their performance. So here you have their conversion rate, the numbers of transactions paid, the numbers of transactions created, etc., all in one overview. In here, a merchant at our end can have multiple accounts, an account being a website, for instance, or a different payment channel for them, or business channel. So in here, if they make a selection, the demo. So with this dashboard, a client of ours can see in one glance how are they performing. They can filter on any of their individual accounts or multiple, but then they can also view their performance for a specific payment product. So I'd like to see how is my business going, especially for my Visa Online transactions, for instance. And simply by clicking on Visa Online, the view will filter and show how they're performing for Visa Online for these specific accounts. Another business question from our merchants was looking at their average transaction value, and are there any differences in currency? So here, I'm just selecting one of the accounts. So here you have the average transaction value of this particular merchant. This is a dummy account. And then all the currencies. So on average, a transaction is 143 euros. However, you see a big spike here for Japanese yen, where it seems that people paying in Japanese yen have a lot higher, or at least a much higher average transaction value, and therefore a different spending behavior on their website, for instance, than others. A nice example was one of our clients who has their business module is donations. So they use this dashboard to look at, okay, in which country or which region are people donating more or less money than average, and using that to show their average donating spending on their website towards new donators. Another way to look at consumers is, of course, to ask, okay, where are my consumers coming from? But then also, how do my consumers prefer to pay? So in this dashboard, you have the world map, and then you see all your payment products and how many transactions you did. If you mouse over, you also see the details. But then you can look at the behavior of your consumers. So for instance, if I click on Germany, it will tell me how do my German consumers prefer to pay. As you already see, that's a bit different, especially if you compare it, for instance, to your Dutch consumers, how they prefer to pay. An example for this, how our merchants use this, is to have a default payment product selected in their country. So one of our merchants had Visa as the default payment product for all their websites, because they saw in their statistics that Visa was the most used payment product. However, in the Netherlands and in Germany, Visa is never, at least hardly used compared to the other products. So now they changed their current default setting to ideal, which is far more used by their Dutch consumers, which takes away one extra step in the process of a consumer making the final payment, which increases their conversion. That's it for a small demo of Elevate. I'll now hand over to Jorge Villacampa, who will tell a bit more about how we created these dashboards.
Hello, my name is Jorge Villacampa, and I'm data analyst at GlobalCollect. And together with my colleague Tolio, I'm responsible for the creation of the dashboards in Elevate, as well as just data analysis and data visualization in general. I want to talk today about how we create dashboards in Elevate. And I want to cover 3 parts. First of all, I want to explain what are the visual characteristics of the Elevate dashboard. Then I want to talk about the 5 steps that we use to create dashboards at Elevate. And finally, I want to explain why we chose Tableau. So, what are the key characteristics for the Elevate dashboard? So for us, a dashboard needs to be intuitive, informative, and beautiful. Intuitive because we serve 500 plus clients. We are not there to support on how they use the dashboard, so it has to be user-friendly, it has to be easy to navigate, to use. Informative, because we want to answer business questions, we want to drive actions to drive our clients' business. And beautiful, because people are attracted by beautiful things, beautiful charts, easy to use, informative, and beautiful. That's what we want to do. And we create dashboards around business questions. And once we understand the business question, we want to tell a story. We want to answer that question, and we want to think as a story. And because of that, we look at the best storytellers. Companies like National Geographic, New York Times, The Guardian, South China Morning Post. They are the best storytellers. And I want to show you a little bit of some of the infographics they use and that we use also to inspire ourselves. Obviously, we are not exactly the same as a newspaper. We have many different merchants, which they have different, let's say, stories behind. They operate in different countries, different currencies, different payment products. So not all the dashboards work exactly the same for everyone. But we need to. This is what we try to do. That's our aim. And one thing we realize when we look at the visualizations, infographics at National Geographic or New York Times, is that there is some consistency across all of them. And there's a consistency across, it's kind of the same theme, the same kind of style that helps readers in this case, but in our case users, to understand, to follow, to understand a new dashboard. So we have created a toolbox of charts, styles, fonts, colors. So to create some kind of familiarity when people use Elevate. However, that does not stop us to explore new ideas. So in the same way, National Geographic may try a new type of infographics and see how readers react. We try the same. We try new charts, new infographics, new dashboards, and we see the response. First of all, response internally with our colleagues, but also then with some key clients. And we will cover this in the 5 steps. That's what we call continuous improvement. So now that we know what are the key characteristics of Elevate, I want to talk about how we go to create those dashboards. And our first step is to understand our clients. We don't want to create dashboards just for the sake of creating dashboards, but to answer business questions. As Menno explained, for us, Elevate needs to be a tool to drive our clients' business. So we hear the questions from our clients, and normally they are quite business-oriented, so I want to improve my conversion rates. That will bring more revenue. And we need to translate that into data. And we need to think about what the factors will influence that conversion. And then once we understand that, then we can start to create the dashboards themselves. So what are the second step? Second step is data analysis and ETL. For those ones that don't know what ETL stands for, is extraction, transformation, and loading. Basically preparing the tables that they will be used then in Tableau. This is just an iterative process of analyzing the data directly with SQL, freehand SQL, or with Tableau, connecting directly to a table, or preparing tables that we then will use in Tableau, and also getting feedback from our business users, business experts internally. So it's a kind of iterative process, which takes most of our time, in fact. Our first step is sketching the story. And we sketch on pen and paper, old-fashioned pen and paper. And why that? Because it's quick. We can create a sketch in 5 minutes. It's just putting our idea. It's the same idea behind creating a project plan. You don't implement a project with our plan. So this is similar. We just do some drawings, we think what we're going to do, and then we work on Tableau. Or we may need to go back and prepare some tables for Tableau. And the second reason to use a sketch is because you are free to be creative. So you don't need to know how to do it in Tableau. You just think of the chart that you want to do, and then you will figure out how to do it. And in our first phase, we work with a data visualization expert, Jan Willem Tulp, based in The Hague in the Netherlands as well, where he helped us to design the first 6 dashboards for our pilot. And I just want to show you those sketches together with the final dashboard. So this one was one of the sketches, and this was the dashboard. There are small differences, but they are quite similar. Another example, and the final dashboard. Now it comes to my sketches, and you will see that I was not very good in drawing in school. But it's the same idea. You just think in advance what you want to do in pen and paper. You can discuss these ideas with your colleagues, and when you are more clear what you're going to do, you can just go to Tableau and start to implement it. So our first step, creating the dashboard itself, moving from a sketch to Tableau dashboard. I'm not going to explain anything on here. Everybody uses Tableau, and there are different tips, but yeah, we will probably use similar approach to any other Tableau user. So our final step is continuous improvement. So we have our idea is that a dashboard is not final. It's just the best we could come out when we create it, and we listen to our clients, we listen to our team members, our colleagues. We even have an ideas board where we put new dashboards and we ask people to give us feedback. An example of this continuous improvement, there was, for example, this dashboard that we have in the pilot phase, when, although it was visually very interesting, it would not work for many of our clients. There was too many countries, too many currencies. It was just not good enough for converting the information into something useful. So we decided to scratch it. And another example, we have an all data selection, where it was quite limited. We got feedback that people would like to be able to break down line charts by day, by week, by month, and also a more user-friendly time selection. So we create a new date selection. And finally, the last part of my presentation is to explain you why we chose Tableau as our tool. Two main reasons. It's very easy to move from a sketch to a dashboard. You don't need to have complicated data structures, neither a semantic layer. You can just basically plug to a table and start to explore. And that's the second reason. It's easy to explore new data. You can do it with SQL, but you can just basically plug to a table and start to play with the data in Tableau. And you can also use very easily other sources like Excel or any other database. So this is the two main reasons that we chose Tableau as our tool. And now this is the end of my part of the presentation. Next presentation will be normally done by Liu, also one of my colleagues, data analyst as well, and we both work together to create the dashboards. And this part of the presentation is about how we create Elevate. It's about the technical side of the presentation. So I will present here a little bit of the technical background, and then I will go and explain 3 problems that we encounter and how we solve them. And the 3 problems are how we publish workbooks, navigation across dashboards, and live connection performance. So let's start with the technical background. First thing is just to present the tools that we use. As you can probably guess, our main reporting tool is Tableau software. Then we use Ab Initio as our ETL tool. And finally, our database appliance is an IBM Netezza. Our database appliance, just a little bit of background, we have more than 500 databases, 1 database per client. The reason for this is to make sure the data of one of our clients is self-contained and is secure. We have tables with more than 1.6 billion records, and our data grows about 1 million records per day. And what about Tableau Server? So we have more than 500 client sites. Again, we have one site per client. We have currently more than 24 dashboards and we're growing. So we have a very ambitious roadmap. So we are creating new dashboards every month, more or less. So let's go to the first problem we encounter, publishing workbooks. So we use, to create a new workbook, we use a development Tableau server-side database. But however, when we need to publish, we have more than 500 client sites with their own database. So if we try to do it manually, we will need to change the database connection and publish to the relevant site. And that's impossible to do manually. So we need to find a way to do it in an automated way. So what we did, first we realized that Tableau workbook is just an XML, so you can basically edit it. It can be edited with a number of tools, even just Notepad. Because it can be edited, you can create a script that will do the edition in an automated way. So just to give you a bit of insight on the script, what it does is, the first part, we use a software called Set to do the edition. And the first part, we just edit the data connection, so we will edit the database server, the username and the password, but also we edit the merchant name. So all the names that they are in the different dashboard will be also edited through this process. And the second part of the script will basically do the publication. So we'll basically know where to publish those new workbooks into which site. And we use that using a command called well, basically using the command prompt, but we're using the tabcmd command, which is a command from Tableau. Our second problem was the navigation across dashboards. We have currently 24 dashboards, but we're increasing the number of dashboards as well. So we want to lead our clients across the different dashboards, which is not just to choose one, but we also is a guided experience. And all those, and we use a content page for that. But the content page is using URLs. And the problem is, we have 500 sites. And those 500 sites, each of them has a different URL, because part of the URL is the site. So, how do we do this? Basically, doing manually will be, again, impossible to do. So we need dynamic URLs, and for that we use a navigation table. And just to give you a bit of small explanation on the navigation table, we have the three elements that are part of the URL. So we have the site, we have the workbook, and we have the worksheet. And then what we do is, when you use the actions in Tableau, we basically, in the URL, we embed these three elements: the site, the workbook, and the worksheet. So we create a connection, a data connection to this table, and then we use that information to drive the URL. And finally, our last problem, it was the live connection performance. So we connect to an IBM Netezza, and we have very ambitious expectations from our clients. So every dashboard has to open within 3 seconds, and it needs to interact within 2 seconds. Every time you click in an action, like in a filter in a dashboard, the data should be refreshed within 2 seconds. And also data need to be refreshed on a daily basis. So we had two options. The first one would be using Tableau extracts. However, daily refresh of the extracts are very expensive in time, database resources, and also server Tableau space. We have 500 sites. So imagine that every refresh of all dashboards just for one site takes 2 minutes. If you multiply by 500, that's over 16 hours. So if the data was refreshed in the database 5 o'clock in the morning, it will take 16 hours to get the last our last client's dashboard refreshed. So that will be 9 o'clock in the evening. That's completely not scalable, given especially when we are increasing the number of our clients, but also on number of dashboards. So just let's start with live connections. However, the initial performance was really poor. it was taking between 70 to 100 seconds to open a dashboard and between 20 to 40 seconds to interact with the dashboard. So, working with Tableau support and also with the Tableau engineering team, we identify 3 problems: metadata checks, suboptimal SQL, and Netezza was not fully utilized. So let's go each of those. One, metadata checks. So the problem is that Tableau, when opens a dashboard, checks the metadata of each of the tables that they are involved into the data connection. However, there is a file, Tableau Data Connection File, or TDC, that basically can change some of these default Tableau settings. For example, the metadata checks. So working with the Tableau support team, we identified some of the settings that we needed to change for Netezza, and we improved the performance by reducing the amount of checks that were done in the metadata. The second problem was that SQL was not optimal for Netezza. It was using multiple tables, and because you need to check the metadata for each of the tables, and that's about 2 seconds per table. And if you have 10 tables, it's about 20 seconds just to check the metadata. That was not very efficient. But also, it was not very efficient for our database. So what we decided, it was to change to one single table. So we create one table with all the descriptions and calculations that they are needed for Tableau dashboard. So now we only go to one database, one table. So there is the metadata checking is very small, and it's much more simple SQL, so it's a much better performance. And they did a huge improvement in our live connections. And finally, Tableau sends by default one query at a time to the database. So if you one dashboard, like in this example here, they have 4 charts, we'll send 4 queries to the database, and we'll wait for the results before sending the next one. However, we use an IBM Netezza, which has 16 parallel processors. So we were able to cope with the 4 queries at the same time. But Tableau was not supporting that. But from Tableau 8.1, now supports parallel queries. However, by default, it's still sending one by one. So what you need to do is duplicate the same query, the same connection, with a slightly different name, and then you will assign those connections to the individual charts within the dashboard. So then it will trigger all to be run at the same time. So what is the outcome of all these improvements? So before, opening a dashboard was between 70 to 100 seconds. Now it's between 5 to 12 seconds. Still, our target is 3 seconds, and we're working with the Tableau engineering team to achieve our target. Live connections interacting with dashboard, it was between 20 to 40 seconds. Now it's between half a second and 2 seconds. So we are on target. And this is the end of my presentation, the technical part. I'm just going to send you back to Menno, which will finish off with our lessons learned.
Thank you, Jorge. So, what did we learn from all this, from our journey from an idea to this finalized product with all the challenges that we had? First off, and that I think is the most important one, when you create dashboards, work with your end users. Especially if you are the one who is developing the dashboards, work with your end users. What are their expectations? What are their needs? Also, don't limit yourself by only thinking of the data. Look at the needs and the business question. What we did was, when we asked our merchants, what do you like to know? We didn't started looking at the data and started creating dashboards ourselves. No, we first asked them, okay, what is it that you like to know? Not thinking of the data, not thinking of the transactions. Just what do you know? What do you like to know in an ideal world to improve your business? And with that, we started working and thinking, how can we create a dashboard out of that, and do we have the data for that? Also, as Jorge mentioned, don't be afraid to delete dashboards, especially in our case, where we have this as a product that we provide to our clients. And we want to make sure that each dashboard provides added value to our merchants. If a dashboard doesn't give a good enough answer on the business questions, we will just simply delete it, because then that dashboard doesn't provide a good enough answer for us. So maintaining the quality. Also, don't wait for the perfect solution. Try to explore. Creating a dashboard is really a continuous improvement for us. When we create a dashboard, we expect a lot of feedback. In our cases, we're using pilots for that. So every time we create a dashboard, we first publish it internally, then externally, but still in a pilot, and then we receive a lot of feedback. But even when a dashboard is finished, we don't consider it the end stage. Dashboards will continuously grow, and we'll add new features, we will change things, we will see what is working and learn with our end users what the best way is to visually answer a business question. And also, of course, don't be afraid to look for help, especially if you're the person who is creating the dashboards. You cannot, or at least it's very difficult to create the perfect dashboard. So ask for help. Ask your end users to help. Ask your other colleagues, for instance, to help you with designing these dashboards. That's it for our presentation. I hope you found it very interesting, and I hope you've actually learned some things of that which could help you improve your business as well.